Well, the hype is real with one battle after another, Paul Thomas Anderson's latest foray into just being one of the best darn directors in the history of cinema. But what was the point of it all? Let's dig into that. Firstly, though, let's just delve through the basic premise. See, there's this revolutionary group called the French 75 that's making a lot of headway screwing with the government and rescuing immigrants from detainment. It's at one of these detention facilities that our main characters, Ghetto Pat Calhoun and Perfidia Beverly Hills, first encounter the villainous Colonel Stephen Lockjaw, whom Perfidia sexually humiliates, much to his pleasure. Lockjaw winds up making it sort of his mission to keep track of Perfidia and her revolutionary antics moving forward, and eventually the two of them wind up banging, and long story short, they conceive a child, unbeknownst to Lockjaw. Pat, meanwhile, believes the child to be his own, and he and Perfidia start a family. However, Perfidia can't stay clear of the revolutionary lifestyle, and during a bank robbery gone wrong, she winds up killing a guard and is sent on the run. She winds up captured and, in a shocking turn of events, agrees to sell out her fellow resistance fighters in exchange for witness protection, only to wind up fleeing to Mexico, never to be seen again. 16 years later, we get our primary plot. Pat now lives under the name Bob Ferguson, while his daughter, formerly Charlene, goes by Willa. As far as she's aware, this is just who they are, but Bob has been transformed by his experiences into an anxiety-ridden nervous wreck of a father figure, who spends his days watching old war movies like the Battle of Algiers while smoking copious amounts of dope. When Willa's friends come to pick her up for the school dance, Bob makes a fool of himself by dressing them down and making empty threats. He's a proper cinematic loser. Willa, meanwhile, has kept her mother's revolutionary spirit and is under the belief that Perfidia was killed by Lockjaw rather than engaging in the cowardice that she actually followed through on. Meanwhile, Lockjaw is trying to join a group called the Christmas Adventurers Club, basically just a bunch of racists gathering to talk about how great it is to be white and the importance of racial purity, that kind of business. And man, Lockjaw is pumped to be joining this group, but there is a problem. See, in order to join this merry band of white supremacists, you can never have engaged in interracial relations, and Lockjaw understandably grows concerned that he fathered a child with Perfidia. So he mounts a quest to find Willa and get rid of any potential evidence for his indiscretion. He hires a bounty hunter named Avanti, and long story short, things get out of hand. Willa narrowly escapes getting taken at her school dance when French 75 member Deandra rescues her and takes her to a convent, where she learns about how her mother betrayed the group. Bob, on his own little adventure, enlists the aid of Willa's martial arts instructor Sergio Saint Carlos, who aids in Bob's journey to the convent, where he fails to kill Lockjaw, who has tracked down Willa and, through a mobile paternity test, discovers that he is in fact her biological father. So, long story short, the Christmas Adventurers Club winds up discovering Lockjaw's secret, and they send one of their members, Tim Smith, to track down and kill Lockjaw and Willa, the latter of whom has once again escaped thanks to Avanti turning on his employer and getting killed in the process. Tim shoots Lockjaw in the face, but is shortly thereafter himself killed by Willa after he fails to deliver the revolutionary countersign. Bob and Willa reunite, with Willa adamant that Bob is her real father. Lockjaw survives the attempt on his life, only to be gassed and incinerated by the Christmas Adventurers Club. Starting life anew, Bob gives Willa a letter from Perfidia and lets her go off to join a protest, having overcome his fears for his daughter's safety. So yeah, there's a lot of plot there with a little to unpack. When Bob and Willa are finally reunited, by the way, Willa demands Bob at gunpoint recite the missing lyrics from The Revolution Will Not Be Televised, the spoken word piece by Gil Scott-Heron. It's a return to the running gag of Bob not being able to remember any of the Underground's code words, but with a more heartwarming conclusion.
You know, I don't remember that part.
What's most important in understanding One Battle After Another is that it's a film that wears its heart on its sleeve. It's about revolution and the ways in which various types of people contend with that idea, often resulting in disappointment. Perfidia seems to view it as a natural course for her life, having come from a family of similarly revolutionary-minded individuals. However, she gives it up in favor of her own safety, showing that she seems most interested in how it can positively affect her. Juxtapose this with Bob, who similarly acts out the role of revolutionary, only to give it all up in favor of quiet parenthood and a life of mild hedonism. It's their daughter Willa who proves herself to be the righteous fighter that they saw themselves as, but only after a sort of trial by fire as she contends with a crazed military fascist, a bounty hunter, and the remnants of the revolutionary movement that her parents were a part of. Bob learns through his experience to trust that she'll fight the good fight no matter what. It literally is one battle after another, and Willa is the latest to join the fight, and maybe, just maybe, she'll be one to make legitimate change in the world. That's the hope, and the film definitely goes out on hope. Willa's arc in the film is to go from normal high schooler to revolutionary fighter thanks to her experiences with the threats on her life. She doesn't necessarily want to be a part of anything huge. She wants to be normal. It's only through the ramifications of her parents' past mistakes that she's thrown to the wolves and forced to learn the ways of the revolutionary. She witnesses death and even administers it herself, and that changes her perspective, as you'd expect it to. In the end, she enters the world of oppression as a minor figure hell-bent on change. Change that goes directly against those in power, aka the types who would join the Christmas Adventurers Club, which we see maintains some unseen but nonetheless massive, powerful reach. Willa has seen what this kind of power can do, but she remains steadfast in her acclamation to this new way of life. When she goes to leave for a protest in the end, her dad tells her to be careful, to which she replies, "I won't." The Christmas Adventurers Club, meanwhile, takes things to an almost nihilistic extreme. So pressed are they to not allow race mixing that they have a potential member murdered just because he dared to have sex with a black woman. They hold antiquated, absurd standards that only seem to result in violence and death, and actively reward those who push that hateful ideology. After all, it's only due to his success in detaining immigrants that Lockjaw is given the opportunity to join the club in the first place. Yet that's not good enough because, well, he made the mistake of engaging in relations with a fellow human being who happened to be of the wrong pigmentation. It's not even that she was a revolutionary, something that could be seen as taboo by any alternate side of a conflict, but rather something as inconsequential as what she looked like. It's all very silly, much like the name of the group and their oddball practices, but at the same time, it's the darkest form of evil that we're given access to throughout the near 3-hour runtime. On the other side of the coin, Benicio del Toro's Sergio Saint Carlos is arguably the moral center of the film. He's a pure soul who engages in the revolution only to help others rather than to revel in the glory of battle. He's a non-violent revolutionary and one who has clearly been fighting the good fight for longer than most. It's no accident that he's Willa's teacher, and his guidance will have theoretically made a very necessary impact on how she develops in the future. The point of all this is really just to say that there's not much to explain when it comes to the finale of one battle after another. If anything, this is probably Paul Thomas Anderson's most accessible movie since, I don't know, Boogie Nights? At the same time, this is still a film rife with complex ideas. As I previously said, it's a movie that wears its heart on its sleeve. It's a tale of revolution, adulthood, and the darkness that lay underneath society, which we must all come to accept as the enemy of progress. It's about young revolutionaries growing up to become disappointed in themselves, only to produce offspring potentially capable of bringing in the change that they fought for and failed to bring to light. Whether or not Willa will be that rare revolutionary who wins out against the deep-seated hatred and bigotry of the world is left up in the air. It could be that time does to her what it did to her parents, but for now, we're left with a strain of optimism. She'll keep up the good fight, one battle after another. So, what did you think of One Battle After Another? Did it spark a revolutionary fervor within you, or was it just a good movie that gave you a cool car chase? Let me know in the comments how you feel on the matter, and until next time, thank you for watching Screen Rant.